Marcus Corval with MMAnytt here in Los Angeles at Trinity Boxing Gym with a legend in the sport, Lucia Rijker. How are you?
Pretty good.
You're now taking on the coaching role, and you're going to Sweden on June 14th with Diana. How long have you been working together?
About a year and a half. Yeah, year and a half.
Year and a half?
Yeah.
Do you see the difference in her game?
Oh, definitely. Like I'm a very demanding coach. So it's never enough for me.
I believe that.
You know, it's like excellence is the goal. So there's always things to improve. But from when we started to now, definitely she's come a long way, and she's a really hard worker and very determined, and she has very unique characteristics for a fighter that I really like and that challenge me in different ways. But we really complement each other.
And how is it to go from being an active fighter yourself to being in the same environment, but no longer being between the ropes, but being on the outside of them?
Well, in the beginning it was quite an interesting transition because I mainly trained female fighters. So when I worked with fighters before while I was active, and in my kickbox career I worked with fighters as a coach for many years. But to really mainly be a coach, when I worked with Lamar, I realized a lot about fighters that I didn't realize when I was active. So I was very grateful for all the coaches I've had, because all the headache I put them through and all the demands of a fighter was quite interesting. And then as a coach, I'm learning to adapt to the fighter's needs, which is the hardest thing, because every fighter is different. So how do I get to move this fighter in a direction that I desire for them? How do I communicate with them? How do I break it down and teach them to go in a specific direction without them making them into me? Because everyone has different talents. That's the hardest part.
And for you that don't know, Lucia is not just a fighter. She is undefeated in kickboxing, undefeated in professional boxing. You might have seen her if you're more into television on $1 Million Baby as, was it Billy?
Yeah.
Is that the correct name?
Yeah.
The bad girl in the movie. And I believe the first official fight between a woman and a man, that was you as well, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Now, coming from a kickboxing career, being from Holland,
Yes.
or Suriname, Holland,
Yeah.
and coming in through the Dutch style of kickboxing to professional boxing, what many people might not know, that you started in judo. You have Diana on a mixed card, meaning one fight of boxing, one fight of mixed martial arts on the 14th of June in Sweden. Talking about mixed martial arts, how do you think you would have done in today's world of mixed martial arts?
You know, it's quite interesting you asked me that. I have a blue belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu as well, and I have a black belt in Kyokushin. So when it comes down to martial art, it's my first art. Judo I was a child when I practiced judo, but I'm a master in Kyokushin, and blue belt is okay in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So in my prime, I would have loved it. We worked with Ronda Rousey for a little bit, and there were moments that I think, could I? My low kicks are still pretty sharp.
I believe
my
that.
timing is still excellent in my low kicks. So of course you play with the thought, but I couldn't do what the fighters do today. I could not train twice a day, 6 days a week, come home with pain, give up my life and my life basically, because you have to have tunnel vision, which means everything, at least the way I lived my athletic career, was everything I thought, ate and did was related to my next fight. I won't do anything extra or different if it wasn't related to my next fight. So it was a very extreme lifestyle, almost like a monk. I lived with bare minimums, and I went to the extreme. I don't think I'm able to do that anymore. Fighting, maybe, the violence, you know, the pent-up energy that you have as a fighter to prove yourself, I don't have that as much anymore. You need that to win, and you need to be willing to hurt. I'm still willing to, you know, when we spar, I'm still willing to like get my punches in, but to really damage, I don't have that, and I used to have that.
And talking about being a monk, you are now a Buddhist, and before coming on here, I actually sent out a message on Facebook saying, does anyone have a question for you that they would like to ask you? One, in fact, is actually from one of my old boxing coaches, You were ringside when I fought in the California finals of the California Golden Gloves, and he asked you then, but he said it never really got an answer from you. How is it being a Buddhist and a fighter at the same time? How do you feel? How does it play off each other?
I would not know how to do one without the other. So, when you say Buddhist, there's many kinds of Buddhism. So, when you say martial arts, there are many kinds. It's the same thing like saying Buddhism. There are many different sects of Buddhism. I practice Nichiren Buddhism. One of Nichiren's disciples was a samurai fighter. So it relates very much to combat, and basically overcoming negativity is part of this Buddhism. And as a fighter, what you do is before you get to Moment Supreme, which is when the bell rings, you're battling your own negativity, your own doubt, your own fears. Because if you don't battle your own negativity, doubts, and fears, the moment the bell rings, you know more than anyone, you fight yourself and your opponent. And if you fight yourself and your opponent at the same time, you have a hell of a fight. So what it helped me with was to battle my own negativity, and not necessarily to beat the opponent, but to be grateful to have this opponent bring out my fullest potential as a fighter. So not to take things too personal. It's not a life and death situation. It's more like, how can I bring out my fullest potential as an athlete? On another note, as a Buddhist, it's also called, your life is your vehicle. Whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. When you use it as a vehicle to transform yourself and to elevate your consciousness, it's good action. If you just perform to gain self-importance, which are titles and fame and money, that has nothing to do with Buddhism. But if you fight to create value for other people and to bring out your fullest potential as an athlete and as a human being, which it did for me, it polished my life, then it's a wonderful vehicle to have. I think that actually every fighter should have some sort of spiritual understanding of life, because if you just compete to win, it's like being an addict. Just one more shot, because you know you get high. Every time you fight, you get high, and then you get addicted to the fame and to, you know, the thrill in your life and the lifestyle. And once you retire, then what? Then you build a false sense of yourself, an identity based on your titles only, but not a sense of who you are. It's like you can build self-confidence, build on your performance, but you don't build self-esteem. Self-esteem is something different, and so it's important to build self-esteem as you are an athlete, and you build confidence based on your performance. Because if you build confidence based on performance only, then when you don't perform well, you fall apart and you don't know who you are. So that's why I really recommend to have some sort of philosophy next to your whatever performance you do, whether you're a fighter or whatever extreme performer you are, because it shapes you more into knowing who you truly are.
That's very impressive. We see a lot of fighters coming through the ranks and having great careers, known as the baddest female on the planet. It's pretty impressive to hear someone who was that person and no longer is, but still have these values and understand that. Because we see from Mike Tyson to other great fighters that have, like you said, reached the top and then had a very hard crash afterwards.
I've seen a lot of fighters that made a lot of money, millions of dollars, blew it all, and the IRS came to get all the cars and all the fancy stuff. Then they fell into hell, basically. Hell is in this world, which means you're really suffering. And then they made a comeback and another comeback, and now, I don't want to mention any names, but some are old. They're still earning a living, getting beat up in the ring, because they don't know what else to do with their life. People don't understand that being a gladiator is a very unique lifestyle. There's nothing like being a gladiator. There's nothing in your life after retirement that I think comes close to being a gladiator in an arena. There's a lot of other extreme sports that gives the thrill, but being a gladiator, a one-on-one combat, is very primal. So the moment you retire, there's no rehab, there's no, where do you go with that fame and that gladiator mentality? So it's really hard for an extreme athlete in combat to retire in a way that is, become like a normal human being, because you're never really normal. That's why I compare it to being a monk. Monks are extreme too, and they live in solitude and self-reliance, and most fighters do the same.
So how did you find it? Just like you said, being a gladiator, we see it with soldiers that go to war and come back, and they can't stay home. They feel the need to go back to war. How were you able to go from being that person? I'll give you a good example. In 2001, I think it was, I was training at the original LA Boxing in downtown Los Angeles. Supposed to be some weigh-ins down there. Christy Martin. You didn't know I was there, did you? I was a kid at that time.
I had no idea. Oh God, here we go.
Furious Lucia Rijker come running in. Did you get a couple of punches in before they pulled you off?
I have no comment.
But from that person, that was the first time I met Lucia in person, to today. What was the light? What was it that made the change in you?
Oh, the fight was part of my change. I mean, I'm a gladiator, so when someone insults me publicly, at some point you're going to have to talk to me face to face. I was really a gladiator when I was fighting. I mean, there are rules in the world, but there's a rule in the gladiator world, which means like you're a knight. Somebody offends you publicly, it's like throwing the glove, right? So I had to face her and ask her, what's up? Which I did, and then she attacked me. I had a reflex, and then I got jumped by 10 guys, and all I did was just try to get them off me, basically. It just turned into this real drama thing, which was not necessarily my intention, but I came in like a knight, which means a gladiator, to talk to another gladiator and say, what's up?
Have you spoken to her since? How are you two today? How do you feel?
Have I spoken to her since? No, I have not. But I think she went through some life-changing experiences, which elevated her consciousness, because I thought she was quite an ignorant person at that time when we had that interaction. What changed me? Life changed me. You know, I lost both my parents. That will make you grow up. I retired on an injury on the peak of my career, almost like for $1 million fight. So right after my mom died. So life punches you harder than anyone ever punched me in the ring, and that will expand your life, and that will make you grow as an individual and make you really realize where life's truly about.
But for June 14th in Stockholm, Waterfront, Golden Ring, we have Diana facing Frida. You mentioned that you watched some of Frida's previous fights.
Yes.
How do you predict the fight going?
I think it'll be a hell of a fight. Yeah, I think it's a unique fight because of Frida's amateur background, but also like Diane was sharing earlier that she had a short amateur career because she blasted all of the girls out of there, basically. To keep her as an amateur would be a waste of her talent because she's a pro fighter. She trains like a pro. She's really determined. The amateur game is a very different game, amateur boxing. So her trainer at that point didn't feel she needed to have an amateur career because she was ready to go to the pros. So I agree with that. She's really a very explosive, very powerful individual with the heart of a lion. Again, like I said earlier, we're going to the hometown again of the favorite girl, which we did with Holly Holmes. When she fought Holly Holmes, she basically gave up 17 pounds of muscle mass because I had to keep her weight up to 140. Holly dried out to 139 but blew up after the
Holly's
weigh-in.
a big girl.
Gigantic,
yeah.
like a giant. However, Diane dropped her on a jab. So after that, Holly was holding, punching and holding. And of course, when we're in New Mexico, there's no referee that would ever interrupt a holding from the favorite girl. So, but on that note, Diane wanted to fight. She knew the girl was going to be bigger. She knew she was pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Diane went in, gave her 10 rounds, and every round was a hell of a fight. So that's just more about Diane than about Holly. You know, we pick and choose her opponents most of the time. Picking Diane at 130 fighter, thinking they're going to knock us out. They had a hell of a struggle to stay in there. So that says a lot about Diane. So we're coming in for a war. We're coming in to win. We're coming in to take home the title.
So if you are in Sweden on June 14th, Gothenburg, Stockholm, Malmö, doesn't matter where you're from in Sweden, make sure you make it up to Stockholm to watch the main event of that night. 2 different organizations unifying the belts on top of all the other fights that you have up there, from Patrick Borghera to David Bialkedin and Diego Gonzalez as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
What's up, doggy?